G'day everyone, Peter here. I'm author of a book called Why Are You Still a Slave, and you can certainly read my book on Amazon, but I'm not here to talk about my book today. Although my book does, it's about how slavery is caused by the monetary system, and how the monetary system takes away all your rights and your options to life without actually you knowing how it's doing that. Anyway, a good read. But what I wanted to talk to you about was the Australian Parliament at the moment is trying to put through a bill, and so this is in draft form at the moment, that's targeting the black economy, the cash black economy, and it's based on a report that's actually written by accountants. So funny enough, accountants have actually got a conflict of interest between the big people in town who pay them billions of dollars a year, and the government who asks them to write a report. And so they write a report that says, hey, the problem's not all our client base who pays us lots of money. That they're not the problem. The problem is the tradie who's taken cash, or the hairdresser who's taken cash, and not declaring it, not paying their GST and not paying their tax. And they're the problem. Now, even the government's own reports say that that's not the case. They say that, hey, the big end of town represents 93% of the black economy, and the small end of town, being the tradies, represent 5 to 7% of the black economy. But so this legislation is really toxic, in as much as that it takes away your freedom to trade. The bill literally makes it illegal for me, and not illegal, a criminal offence. Lots of things are illegal, and lots of things are against the law, and they're common law issues and whatever. This is a crime. If I buy a boat or a car for $10,001 under this new law, now it might be a second-hand boat or car, it doesn't have any, and it might be from a private seller, and so not required to have any GST paid as such. And I've earned all my money and paid the tax on it already, right? The person who bought the car earned the money, paid the tax on the car when they bought it, right? But then when I buy it off of them for my $10,001, this bill makes that a crime, and it makes my liability to a prison sentence of 2 years, right? Now, importantly to note is that this bill starts at 10,000, right? And it may just be a slippery slope. In Europe already, similar bills have been reduced right down. In Spain, it's $1,500 now for those transactions to be a crime. Now, how is it that our government is even contemplating passing a law to make it a crime for me as a citizen to use legal tender to buy goods and services? How is that even possible? Now, an interesting sub-note of that is that this will also cover payment plans, right, or payment arrangements to the full value of the contract. So say say when it does get reduced a bit, and now that you're not allowed to buy anything over $1,000, and you can bet that the law does this. The GST and that was brought in, and it'll just go up, and taxes always go up. Things always slide, right? But so it's the thin edge of the wedge. But this covers payment plans. So if that law comes down to, say, $1,000 or $2,000 that makes it a crime and you go to jail for, if I'm paying my lawnmower guy like $100 a month in cash, I've earned that money, paid my tax on it. It's not my obligation to say whether he is even obligated to pay tax. Maybe he's a pensioner. Maybe he's under the 20,000 tax-free threshold, in Australia. So he doesn't have to declare that money up to 20,000. Maybe he's only got 1 or 2 clients that he's doing it for. But it's still a crime under this new bill for me to pay him, because it includes any payment arrangement, right, to the total value of the arrangement. Now, so maybe he's signed me up for a 1-year contract, right, at $100 a month, right? And so that's $1,200 a year. Now I'm over the 1,000 threshold, and if I've been paying him cash for that year, and that means that I'm liable for a prison sentence. It makes me a criminal to pay somebody. How could we possibly be in this position in a freely elected government where politicians are so far from the reality of what the average person thinks about things that they would even consider using legal tender a crime? Now, I know why that is. It's to do with our 4-year political cycle. Our politicians are only worried about whether they get elected again, and they just don't want the Titanic to sink on their shift, right? You know, they don't care if it sinks later, as long as it doesn't sink on their shift. Now, every country in the world that's doing really well at the moment has got a political environment where they think, 50 years ahead, 100 years ahead, right? And so that's why their decision-making process is doing really well. But anyway, so payment plans will be illegal. Paying money to anybody will be a crime and have a prison sentence attached to it. And just by the way, the exemption to the legislation. Always read the exemptions. Who's exempt from this crime of paying money? Real property buyers, right? So if you're buying land, if you're buying rights to land, if you're paying a deposit, if you're doing anything to do with real property, you're exempt from this legislation that says cash payments are illegal. So I don't know about you, but if you're money laundering and you wanted to know how to get your $150,000 worth of cash you'd taken out of your pub or your casino or something, or your donation money or whatever, right? And that you don't want to write a law that makes it a crime to buy something, unless you've got a way to get around it. And the way to get around it is to buy real property. So you can go and pay $100,000 for a block of land or a house, or $1 million or $1 billion for a house in cash, and you're exempt from this black, tie down of the black economy. You're exempt. Now, the only people that have got that kind of money are the people that are, seriously wealthy, don't pay any tax, right? They don't do anything to contribute to society. They're the people that get an exemption, right? Now, also, Treasury officials get an exemption, government officials get an exemption. Well, you want to make sure that your donations aren't affected, and so the big donations you can take still. ASIO is exempt. The government makes a special note to say, hey, if you're in a flood-affected town and all the communications are wiped out, you can't draw money out from the ATM, or you can't transfer money electronically at the online. And that town puts all them cash that's available, which won't be a hell of a lot, because once we get rid of this, cash thing, there won't be much cash around. But they can pool their money together, give it to one person. That one person might drive a truck out of the flood zone, right, and go and buy the goods and services that the town needs and come back with them. Well, they're exempt from this legislation, right? They're not committing a crime. Well, thank you very much, government, for putting that exemption in for us. We all appreciate how much you care about the Australian people, that you allow us in a flood situation to use legal tender to buy some stuff like food, right? So thank you. And if you're a minister and you vote for this bill, you do not represent me. You do not represent anybody I know. You do not represent any of my family, as far as I know, because my family thinks that legal tender is exactly that, legal tender, and I should be allowed to buy goods and services in Australia with my money, at my option and my discretion, right? So anyway, make sure you log on to the website and make a submission, right? I'll put the links in below. We really need people to make submissions before August 14 in order to try and help stop this bill. Thank you. Like, comment, subscribe, share.